how you do the experiment, sometimes it seems like it's a wave, sometimes it seems like it's a chunk or particle, which is true, which is the better description. So it's actually worthwhile to not think about light all the time. Let's think about something more general. Let's stick to electrons. So as we saw from yesterday's lecture, you probably want to be a little bit wary when thinking about individual electrons. Things could be a little bit different in a buzzword person. But here's a crucial thing. Before doing anything else, you just think, which one of these two is more likely to describe electrons? Well, electrons are localized. When you throw an electron at a CRT, it does not hit the whole CRT with a wave distribution. When you take a single electron, you throw it in a CRT, it goes ping in that little glowing spot. Electrons are localized. And we know that localized things don't lead to interference. Right? Some guys at Hitachi, really, you know what would be really awesome? This thought experiment that people always talk about, that's never been done. Well, of send an electron through two slits, or in this case it was like 10 slits, actually it was great. Send an electron, a bunch of electrons, one at a time, throw the electron, wait, like our French guy with the boat. So, do this experiment with our technology and let's see what happens. Okay? And this really is one of my favorites. This is one of the screen. Aha, okay, this is the big one. And oh, that's so sad. Come on. I'm just gonna let. Yeah, right. Let's see if we'll get part of the way. I don't want to destroy it. So what they actually did is they said, look, we want to see what happens. We want to actually do this experiment because we're so awesome at Hitachi research labs. Let's do it. Here's what they did. You turn off the light. Okay, and I'll set this to music. Look at. Here's what's happening. One at a time, individual photons.
This is Friars Point near.
There's not a whole lot of structure.
He sold his soul to the devil to learn how to play the guitar. That's the North Delta Museum. This is the historic Mississippi Delta. It's looking like we're going to have to go into Arkansas.
I don't know of a more vivid example of electron interference. It's totally obvious. It's an individual electron. They run through the apparatus and wait. They run through the apparatus and wait. One at a time. Single electron, like a baseball, they execute this way. And what you see is an interference effect. But you don't see the interference effect like you do for the light. From the waves on the sea. You see the interference effect by looking at the cumulative stacking up of all the electrons that they hit. All the electrons. So, is an electron behaving like a wave in a pond? No, does a wave in a pond hit in a spot? No, it's a distributed piece. Okay, yes, it interferes. Localized. Well, is it behaving like a baseball? Well, it's localized. But when I look at a whole bunch of electrons, they do that. They seem to interfere, but there's only one electron going through at a time. So in some sense, it's interfering with itself. How does that work? Is an electron a wave? Does an electron hit a baseball at once? No. So is an electron a wave? No. Is an electron a baseball? No. It's an electron. Okay? So this is something we're going to have to deal with. That every once in a while we have these wonderful moments where it's useful to think about an electron as behaving in a wave-like sense. Sometimes it's useful to think about it as behaving in a particle-like sense. But it is not a particle like you normally conceive of. It's not a wave like you normally conceive of. It's an electron. I like to think about this like an elephant. If you're closing your eyes and you walk up to an elephant, you might think like, I've got a snake, I've got a tree trunk, there's a fan over here, and wouldn't you like, maybe it's a wave, maybe it's a particle, I can't really tell, but if you could just see the thing the way it is, not through the preconceived sort of notions you have, you'd see it's an elephant. Yes, that is the data center. So Heisenberg, people often give the false impression in popular books on physics, so I want to subvert this, that in the early days of quantum mechanics, people like Born, Oppenheimer, and Heisenberg, who invented quantum mechanics, they were really tortured about, is it electron, is it a wave, it's a wave particle duality, it's both. And this is one of the best subversions of that sort of silliness. So what Heisenberg says, the two mental pictures in which experiments lead us to form, the one is particles, the other is waves, are both incomplete and have only the validity of analogies, which are accurate only in many cases. The apparent duality arises in the limitation of our language. And then he goes on to say, look, you develop your intuition by throwing rocks and, swimming. And duh, that's not going to be very good for atoms. So, this one posted here. His whole lecture is, the lecture is quite lovely. And that's, by the way, that's him in the middle there, Holly over there, right? Okay, so that's the Hitachi thing. So now let's pick up on this though, and think about what happened. I want to think a little more detail about the Hitachi, and I want to think about it in the context of a simple two-slave. So here's our source of electrons. It's literally an electron gun. It's firing off electrons. And here's our barrier, and that's two slits. And we know that any individual electron is hot. Right? But when I take many of them, you get an interference effect. So remember that it's hot. Start this distribution. So here's the question. If we take a single electron, one electron at a time, through this experiment, one electron, you'd go through the top slit, you could go through the bottom slit. While it's inside the apparatus, which path does it take? Good. So did it take the top path? How do you know? Good. Let's lock the bottom. Okay. Force it to go through the top slit. So we lock the bottom. Now, when the electrons that make it through, go through the top slit. Okay, half of them don't make it through. Those that do make it through give you this distribution, no interference. But I didn't tell you these are hundreds of thousands of kilometers apart. The person who threw in the electron didn't know whether there was a barrier here. The electron, how could possibly know whether there was a barrier here? This is exactly like our boxes. Okay? Exactly like our boxes. They go through an electron when the slits both open. We know that ensemble average, it will give us an interference effect. Did the electron inside the apparatus go through the top path? No, did it go through the bottom path? Did it go through both? Because we always see one electron. Did it go through neither? It is a of having gone through the top and the bottom, along the top path and the bottom. So this is a classic example of the two-box experiment. Okay. So I want to tie that together. So let's nuance this just a little bit, though, because it's going to have an interesting implication for gravity. Here's the nuance I want to go on this one. Let's cheat. Okay. Suppose I want to measure which slit the electron actually did do. How might I do that? Well, I could do the coarse thing I've been doing, which is I could block it and just catch the electrons that go through in that spot. But that's a little heavy-handed. Probably I can do something a little more delicate. So here's the more delicate thing I want to do. I want to build a detector that uses very, very, very weak light, extremely weak light, to detect whether the particle went through here or here. The way I can do that is I can sort of shine light through, and I just want to, I'm going to bounce it through my sort of light. And I'll be able to tell whether the electron went through this slit or went through this slit. imagine I did that. So obviously I don't want to use some giant, huge, ultra high energy laser that can blast the thing away. So first I want to use something very diffuse, very low temperature. But it'll change it in some relatively minor way because of
Behold, Pharaoh's army, which has come up to help you, will return to Egypt.
Bluetooth connect.
this experiment doesn't work. Why? No, it's true that, it turns out that those are correlated facts, but here's the problem. I can only know without anyone actually knowing that. So knowing doesn't seem to be like it's very interesting often to say, so what principle that we're going to run into today makes it impossible? I want to shine really low energy, really diffuse light through it and have it scatter. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So when I say really low energy light, I really can't mean, because we've already done this experiment, I cannot possibly mean low intensity, because intensity is the control of the energy imparted by the light. Right? The thing that controls the energy imparted by a collision is proportional to the frequency. So now if I want to make the effect, the energy, or the momentum, similarly, the momentum, where did it go? Remember, the momentum goes like h over lambda. If I want to make the energy really low, I need to make the frequency really low. If I want to make the momentum really low, I need to make the wavelength what? Really big, right? So in order to make the momentum imparted by this photon really low, I need to make the wavelength really long. But now here's the problem. If I make the wavelength really long, so if I use a really long wavelength wave, like this long wavelength, are you ever going to be able to tell which slit it went through? No, because the particle could have been anywhere. It could have scattered this light if it was here, if it was here, if it was here, right? In order to measure where the electron is to some reasonable precision, for example, to this sort of wavelength, I need to be able to send in light with a wavelength that's comparable to the scale that I want to measure. Okay? And it turns out that if you run through and just do the calculation, suppose I send in, and this is done in the books, I think all four, but this is done in the books on the reading list. If you send in a wave with a short enough wavelength to be able to distinguish between these two slits, which slit did it go through, the momentum that it imparts precisely washes out, is just enough to wash out the interference effect and break up these fringes so you don't see interference effect. It's not about what you know, it's about the particulate nature of light and the fact that the momentum of a chunk of light goes like